Our guest today on From the Top is Olaf Lang. Olaf is a professional basketball coach and trainer. He is formerly the Russian women's national team head coach and currently a Chicago Sky WNBA assistant coach and Australian Olympic team assistant coach. He currently runs the Kaizen Basketball Academy, a basketball club for young athletes here in Phoenix, Arizona. I met Olaf through our children who are classmates and basketball teammates. I realized that Olaf has a passion for constant incremental improvement, teaching, and wellness through optimizing mind and body. His background in biomechanics brings a unique perspective to his coaching and training. Our goal is to interview subject matter experts to find out what works in their discipline and try to translate that into our lives and our viewers' lives so that we can all optimize our health and our performance in our particular crafts. I think you will find Olaf's experiences fit that bill, and I hope you will enjoy our discussion from the top. Hi, everybody. We're back here from the top. This is Ryan. Dan's behind the camera today, and we've got a special guest who came up on the hike with us today. This is Olaf Lang. He's a basketball trainer. He's currently assistant coach with the Chicago Sky WNBA team. He's also an assistant coach with the Australian national team and Australian Olympic team. He also runs a basketball training academy, and we wanted to bring him up here on the hike. He's like-minded, interested in wellness, fitness, nutrition, and technical expertise. So wanted to have Olaf just tell us a little bit about yourself, how, where you came from, how'd you get interested in basketball coaching and training?
Of course. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, nice and bright and early. I actually started as a soccer player, and then somehow at 14 fell in love with basketball. Started coaching at 17, and then I guess never looked back. I'm very fortunate to be able to coach the game I love for the last 25 years professionally. I've coached on 3 continents, national team, club teams, women, men, and now I'm fortunate enough to be in a NBA and right here, and I'm looking forward to coach at the Olympics and in Tokyo this summer.
Great. So one of the things that Dan and I like to do on these hikes and on this podcast is to bring up experts and interview experts about what they are expert in, and then we hope to be able to gather some of that knowledge and see how we can improve our skill set and see what works well in other areas, whether it be coaching, architecture, athletics, but anyone who performs at a high level, why are they successful, and how can we translate that into better performance in what we do every day, and also a better quality of life. Tell me more about the basketball academy that you run.
When my kids came to age here, where basketball was up on the horizon, my wife is a professional athlete as well. She coaches the Phoenix Mercury, and the kids have really no choice other than to choose basketball in a basketball household. I realized on the boys' side there was some quality clubs, but on the girls' side there was nothing, especially the age 8 and 10. So I decided to start one myself, and we now have a good following, and I think we have a good program. But it showed me that on the grassroots level, when it comes to getting kids involved and doing the right things and building it up, and also laying a wider foundation than just basketball, which I think is very important at the age of between 8, 10, and 12, and even beyond, wasn't there. Even the knowledge of what to do and how to do it doesn't seem to be as commonly known. So I decided to, help out. Obviously motivated by my daughter, but I thought I can also influence some other coaches. So I have now 3, 4 young coaches who are kind of along with us, and I hope they're learning, and one day they can spread it forward.
So when you look at mindset, so you obviously have had contact with athletes at multiple levels. Sometimes when I've seen my own kids, we get too focused on our idea of success. When you look at mindset with successful people, what would you say are the important characteristics that you've seen over the years?
Well, the most important is that you realize that it is not fixed. So, meaning, if you believe you can change it and you are willing to put the work in and use whatever happens to you in your field, let's say basketball, as feedback and as a stepping stone to improve, if you see that as a mindset, you can improve. But if you see it as proof that you're not good enough, then it will limit you forever. So I think the most important thing, and that's something I also struggle with my own children, is to make them understand that if they can't do something now, if they work hard at it and they believe that they can improve upon it and they stick to it and get through it through the obstacles or the failure they may have, that eventually they can improve upon it. And I know science shows us now, I mean, there's a famous book, Carol Dweck, Mindset, I'm sure most of your listeners are familiar with that, is that almost anything can be changed with the right approach and the right mentality to work through the valleys and of it.
So I've had a chance to watch you train some of your younger athletes at the amateur level, and I was struck by your approach to technical mastery of individual components of basketball moves. And I wanted to tell me your approach to your pro athletes. We talked about the mindset, but tell me about technical mastery and what's your, how do you frame that, and what's your general philosophy? Because to me it seems a little bit unique and it seems very successful.
Well, I remember where you may have seen me. I think I did too much there, to be honest. But see, my background is I went to school in Europe. We have a more scientific sports science education than you do here in the United States. It may have changed over the years. I'm not so familiar with that, but I went to university and I have a sports diploma in sports science. And when I went to school, it was just from Germany. It was just after the reunification of Germany, so it opened up to the East. And the East, back in the Cold War, had much better science than we had, because they were trying to, outperform the United States with gold medals. So every resource was put in science. So there was a very good science. And when I was about to go to school, I actually were able to switch to the east side from Berlin. So I went to school, and I had a very good biomechanics professor. So I have a biomechanics background. So I really understand from a very fundamental all movements. I had I think 4 or 6 semester hours on biomechanics, and I was able over my own teaching basketball to integrate the science into what I learned from coaches. But that's a missing link, really, because if you look at coaching here in the United States, is guy comes in the gym, he looks on YouTube video, how you do a drill, and then he gets a good reputation, next guy comes, but there's no education. For me, to become a coach back in Europe, I had to have 8 years of education to get a certain certification to be able to coach. So scientifically, I have a different background than probably most of the coaches here. And from a technical standpoint, so I was able to merge my biomechanical knowledge with my basketball knowledge. And then over years of experimenting and understanding, finding the right drills and kind of merge it together. Now, it's generally better with pro athletes because their body senses, their understanding of kinesiology and how they feel and how movements work make it easier for me to coach them and allow them to fine-tune. With younger athletes, it is way more difficult, but I still try to help them to learn the skill the right way, because we all know neurologically, when you have a skill learned the wrong way, it's so much harder to change it than learn it right in the first place. So I try to do it as much as possible, but unfortunately, most of the time nowadays, even with pros, when I get them, I have to change a skill more often than I can teach a skill from scratch. So with my academy, I try to do it as much as I can, but it's very rare that you can, you have a open playing field and just build something from new. I don't know if they answer your question. But.
Yeah, and of course what I'm getting at is we could probably do more of that in surgery. So we could probably have more reflection on our skills and more deliberate attempts at mastering certain movements during a surgical procedure, practicing those movements and trying to get those technical refinements done, instead of just kind of going to work every day and not reflecting on our movements and our outcomes and things like that. So that's what it's all. We're just, we need to reflect in how can we get better. And surgery is a very technical field. And what I try to do is draw from what you do, and you're getting the most out of your athletes by teaching them technical movements with biomechanics in mind. I think we can extrapolate some of that to surgery too.
Yeah, I mean, the transfer you have to do. I'm not a doctor. That would be hard. But I think the very important thing is to find little exercises or drills that lead there. The whole, especially when it's a complex skill, where a lot of fine movements are necessary and executed well. It's very hard to train it always in the whole. So as much as you can break it down, and then find certain movement chains and then chain them together, that'll be good. The finer the movement, the more accurate it is. I think breathing is very important. That's also something with athletes we work a lot on shooting, is when on release points, when the ball is released, what they do with the breath at a certain point, because the breath makes your muscles tense or relax, and they make certain movements flow or get stuck. And I think paying attention to the breath, especially, I don't know, as a surgeon, when you have finer movement, is important. So I think meditation can help too, just to control your breath and know, and then integrate that obviously in certain movements. We do that to some extent in basketball too, but basketball is a way more dynamic, interactive sport, I guess, in terms of movement than surgery is, I suppose.
How about visualization? Have you ever
we use it all the time. I talk to my athlete about it all the time. I have them frequently do mental shots before they come in the gym. So they come in the gym, they either sit on a chair, have a ball in their hand, just they need some tactile, they need to feel it, sit on their clothes, and then they shoot 10 perfect makes just with their eye closed before they go on the court and work out. And then they do the same at the end. Some are open to it, some still think it's some hocus pocus, but we'll do a lot. My wife, who's a professional athlete, she's done a ton of it, and she played, her prime was in the late 90s, and it's been around forever. There's a lot of athletes that have used it, and there's still not enough to do.
Yeah. Do you do that for cases, Ryan? I know, and I have, I mean, especially when you have something, the night before and the way to the case, you'll say, okay, step one, step two, might not go this way, it might. Here are the different scenarios. How much does that play into what you do?
I do, not for the technically straightforward cases. I do it for the difficult skull-based cases when we're going to be using a drill by the carotid artery and things like that. And sometimes when the anatomy is, that three-dimensional anatomy is somewhat complex, I think it's very helpful, probably on a couple of levels. One is visualizing the steps of the surgical procedure ahead of time can make you recognize something that you may have forgotten. And so that when you're doing the real-time surgery, you've got all the steps you needed. Two, you can kind of visualize and see that anatomy, imagine how the tactile feedback is. But three, doing that, and because usually when I'm doing it, I try to go somewhere where it's quiet, alone before the case, or in the morning, even before I commute to work. But it's just time to reflect, and probably I'm breathing and relaxed, and that just gets you in the proper mindset instead of just rushing to the case and figuring it out as you go. That's never a good strategy for something complex. So we could talk all day about this. But I actually do have something else I want to ask, and that is, as a coach, when you are helping your athletes get the most out of their bodies and minds, you have the ability to collaborate with a lot of different disciplines, physical therapists, nutritionists, sports medicine. What is there? What tips have you learned from that as far as sleep, nutrition, and recovery? Anything that you've gotten from those experts that you think is just kind of
it's a big field.
Yeah.
If you can cover it in 30 seconds, that'd be awesome.
Well,
Dan was giving me the signal to wrap it up, and I'm like, no, I want to get more.
I saw that too, and I go, then he gives me that question to finish off.
Yeah.
Well, everything has, it's like big piece of the puzzle, right? So everything has its role, and there is certainly there's the performance part, the strength, the coordination, nutrition, sleep, recovery, the mental side. It all has its place. And I think there's two thoughts I have. Number one is, while everything is important, every individual, or for me as a coach, I have to identify for each individual what are the key factors that kind of glue it all together. And that may not always be the basketball side. It may be the mental side, imagery, it may be nutrition. Usually in our society nowadays, the way our food supply has developed, how we rely on fast food and convenience, I think nutrition is a big piece. Just work with a pro athlete right now. She had just seen a nutritionist, and I see how she changes. And over the last probably 2-3 years, I came across more players that change to being vegan, and they become stronger more stronger than they had eaten meat and other things. And I'm not saying it's directly correlated, but there's certainly this myth out there: when you eat meat you get stronger, and when you're vegetarian you don't, and that's certainly wrong. So nutrition is a big piece of it. And then obviously sleep, for sure. I mean, for me as a coach now, getting older, also sometimes a stressful profession, wins and losses and all that. Sleep is a big one, but I also learned with sleep that it changes all the time. So you got to get your certain things very constant, like your sleeping environment, when you go to bed, and all the things we know and not always do, and the phone goes away 2 hours before. But still, even if you do everything, there's a lot of emotional, mental parts that I still work through every day, like we all do. So I can't give you a good nugget there, but I think the nutrition side is a big one, especially nowadays, because when the system is not working right and the mind is not working right, I mean, not much matters.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thanks for letting us bring you up here and torture you a little bit.
You haven't tortured me. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you next time from the top.
Bye-bye.